Welcome. I just got some bubble tea and I'm feeling chatty and excited about talking about books. So instead of pestering my friends with that, I'm pestering you with it. Hello, welcome to the channel if you're new here. My name is Leonie. We talk about books here, so if you're a nerd, hop in. Today we are doing a book haul because I'm very excited to talk about new books that I got. The reason that I don't usually do book hauls is because, quite frankly, I feel like I don't buy enough books to be able to make book hauls regularly and interestingly. But I was looking at the books on my shelf and I realized that there are quite a lot of books that I just barely mentioned on the channel that I got that I'm super excited about to read that I haven't had the chance to talk about yet. So I thought, you know what, let's just take all the books that I bought so far this year and chat about them and give you a story of how I got them, why I got them, where I got them, and just talk about them and get excited. So let's go. This is gonna be a chatty sit down video. I'll open my bubble tea. The lady at the bubble tea shop told me that I needed to be careful opening it because there was like a chance of it going wrong and then it would explode. It's fine. Okay, the first book that I want to show you, I've never showed on this channel, but I really got it a while ago. On the cover you can see two insects and it says Professor Dr. Konrad Gunther, Het leven der insecten, which is Dutch for the life of insects. I got this at a secondhand bookstore and it's a, when is this from? Oh my god, almost ripped out a page. 1938, a non-fiction book, a biology book about insects. And I've been really wanting to collect really old books about like interesting topics. Like for example, this, a biology book about insects. That's very cool. One thing you need to know about me is that I am an insect girl and I think insects are very interesting and cool and I like looking at them. When I saw this in the bookshop, I was like, oh my god, I just love really old information books. I'll be honest, I'm probably not going to read this, if not just for the fact that this is from the 1930s and the information in here is probably very outdated. But I especially love the little illustrations that you have in these old books. Wow, look at this beautiful fly laying eggs. This is a fish that's laying eggs in a mussel. Why is this, though these aren't insects? Okay. Another cute little fly. I really like this. So this is the first in my maybe coming collection of just like really old books about interesting stuff that I want to start. And there's a postcard in here of the previous owner. Apparently this comes from Groningen, which is all the way in the north of the country. I never get there. So it's cool that I have a book of someone who lives there or lived there. Let's see what's next on the list. Ooh. One of the first books that I bought this year is The Dispossessed by Ursula K. Le Guin. This is a sci-fi masterworks series. I'm not a big fan of the sci-fi masterworks covers and like this yellowy spine, but I am excited about getting more of them so then they'll all fit nicely together. But so far I only have this one. I really wanted to read Ursula K. Le Guin because I know that she's a renowned sci-fi writer that really uses sci-fi to explore these interesting ideas. She's won a lot of Hugo Awards, Nebula Awards, National Book Awards. She unfortunately died 4 years ago, so that's really sad. We won't be getting any new stories from her, but she has so many interesting sci-fi dystopians, and this one actually, I think a lot of people recommended this as like, hey, if you're really into dystopians, you know, we always talk about 1984 and Brave New World and Fahrenheit 451, but this is another very good dystopian that just often doesn't get talked about or kind of gets left behind in like the main well-known ones, but that was a woman writing fantastic dystopian stories, and this is one of them. Okay, not gonna lie, it's more of a utopia, kind of. It's about the interaction between people on two planets. One of the planets is kind of like our planet, and then the other planet is a utopian anarchistic society where there are no hierarchies, there are no power structures, and we follow a scientist from that world who goes to the other planet, which is more capitalistic like our world. It explores a lot of ideas of how society would look like if you didn't have hierarchies, and I find that very interesting, and it was very good. I already read it. This is one of those books this is going to be a theme in this book haul. I initially listened to the audiobook, but oftentimes when I listen to an audiobook and I really, really like the story, I buy the book anyway because I want to be able to annotate the parts that I like. So when you're listening to the audiobook, you can bookmark parts, but I never go through my bookmarks of my audiobooks. So I want the real book so I can actually tab my bookmarks. I do realize now that I have not done that yet. Like, I literally bought this book just for the sole purpose of bookmarking, tabbing the parts that I bookmarked in the audiobook. And I have not done that. Next up, what do we have here? Ooh. Oh, I'm so excited about this one. So I was scrolling through TikTok, as I do most of the time. And I came across a book talk about this book with a very obsessive relationship. It's dark academia. It's very twisted, very violent. And I was like, that sounds like all the things that I enjoy in a book. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'll just listen to the audiobook. No strings attached. This is usually what I do with audiobooks. I'm like, I'm not gonna buy this book. I don't know if I'm gonna like it. Let me just listen to the audiobook. And I read the audiobook. Like, I remember just one Sunday, I listened to maybe 2/3 of the entire book just in one day. Just audiobook. I was just playing games, listening to the audiobook, and I was so hooked. And again, I was like, I need to get a copy. I need to get a copy of this book because I am going to reread this at some point. And it is These Violent Delights by Micah Nemerever. No, not These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. Haven't read that one actually, but this is the These Violent Delights that I absolutely adored. This is a dark academia story that takes place in 17th Pittsburgh, a university, and we follow Paul, who is a very edgy teenager. Nobody understands him. He likes to read Nietzsche. Then at university he meets Julian, and Julian is like his only intellectual equal. He's very outgoing, very charming, but you know, Paul's the only one who seems to have a true connection with him, and they kind of fall in love basically, which of course they can't really share that they are gay. It really evolves into this very obsessive relationship that they have going on with each other, where they love each other, but they also are kind of in constant competition with each other, trying to prove themselves to each other, which eventually leads to violent things. Very good. I think, I follow Micah Nemerever on Twitter as well. He's funny on Twitter. Where's my phone? Where's my phone? He describes it himself as, if you want to relive your codependent, obsessive, queer, teenage romantic friendships, this time with the worst possible outcome. Hello, hi, this is Editing Leonie. I was just thinking about how book hauls usually get quite a lot of views. I don't know, maybe this video flops, whatever. But I just wanted to take the opportunity to shout out to content creators, bookish content creators that I've been enjoying. Okay, I'll be quick about it. First, I want to give a shout out to Sally Thames. I really like her vibe, and she makes really fun book reading challenge vlog videos, like reading like Cat from 10 Things I Hate About You. And I also recently discovered Cozy Rosie Reads. I really like that she's always talking about books that I've never heard anyone else talking about before. She does a lot of thrifting, and I just really like the way that she discusses books. So I will link them in the description so you can give him a watch. Okay, back to the book haul. I have a book that I recently bought. I think this is actually my most recent buy. No, it's not. Is it? Yeah, it is. I bought Ghostwall by Sarah Maas. Again, I was scrolling through TikTok, and I was very easily persuaded by this person who was talking about a book that gave Midsommar vibes. Midsommar, the horror movie with Florence Pugh. One of my favorite horror movies, one of my favorite movies just in general. This was described to be similar to that, so me being extremely easily persuaded, decided to just take it and not look up anything else about the book, and I was like, I want to read that. I actually went on a trip to Amsterdam. I have a vlog about that if you want to see it, and I was like, you know what, I'm not gonna order it online. I'm gonna go to Waterstones in Amsterdam, really make it a little day out for myself, and there I bought this book. Now, what is this actually about? Because of course it's not exactly like Midsommar at all. So in this story we follow 17-year-old Sylvie, who is a girl who is going on this camping wildlife trip with her father and a group of archaeology students and scholars because they are doing research into the Iron Age and the Iron Age sacrifices that they did. So for a few days they live as if they are in the Iron Age. They sleep in huts like they made it in the Iron Age. They hunt for their food. They wear clothes the way that they would in the Iron Age. And eventually also start to dabble in how they did the sacrifices in the Iron Age. And it also says on the back of the book, her relationship with her father slowly deteriorates. Just from the description on the back and the fact that it was compared to Midsummer, I expected that it would be like a horror about also some family dynamics and, you know, like slowly slipping through your fingers, you know, with your relationship with your father because maybe the main character is getting older, something like that. No, it's like, it's straight up just about abuse. Like, they're in a physically abusive relationship, which is just really not what I expected from the description, and I would have liked to know that before because that's just not really my thing. It's not really horror, it really is more of the story of an abusive family. But if the story about like an abusive family does sound interesting to you, maybe you would really like it. It did get longlisted for the Women's Prize for Fiction a few days ago. And it's super short, it's only 150 pages. Okay, this is a book that I did make an entire video about already, but I bought Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney. Another case of I listened to the audiobook because I was interested and I loved it so much that I bought the book and I like annotated so many of the parts. If you know Sally Rooney, she's most known for Normal People. Sally Rooney's books are very different from what you expect from literature because her characters don't usually go through a lot of typical character development. They don't really have your typical character arc. You don't have typical plots at all. Mostly Sally Rooney books really feel like you are just watching real people. It feels like you're just taking a random strip out of 4 people's lives and you're just observing them in that month. And in real life, of course, in 1 month there's not going to be like elaborate plots happening. There's not going to be some intricate character development, personal development that you go through within a month. But that's actually what I really like about the stories because it really feels like a little window into humanity. And that's why I also feel like the actual plot of the story on the back of the book doesn't really matter for Sally Rooney. Like, okay, yes, we follow Alice and Eileen, who are 2 friends. They send each other letters. Alice is a writer. And then Eileen, who gets into a relationship with like her childhood crush. It's about living in a world that seems not very beautiful and a lot of things are going wrong, but noticing how most of the days in your life you're just gonna be worrying about friendships and love and relationships. Now that I've read Beautiful World, Where Are You and Normal People by Sally Rooney, the only one that I still have to read is Conversations with Friends. I don't own the book, but I do have it on audiobook as well. Actually, that makes me think maybe I should also share the books that I have on audiobook. I regularly add books in my audiobook app and I never haul them because I don't have like a physical copy of them. But it might be interesting to share. So for audiobooks, I use Storytel. That's a black screen. Okay, wait. For audiobooks, I use Storytel, the app, which is kind of works like Netflix, except it's for audiobooks. I did add Conversations with Friends on my shelf. My most recent addition that I added to my shelf is The Cruel Prince. That's the book I'm currently reading, the very well-known, super hyped fantasy series, YA fantasy series about fae. And I'm gonna be reading it for a video, so I'm very excited to read more of it and share my thoughts. I still have a few feminist books by Bell Hooks that I really want to get through. I started both of them. I haven't really been able to get through them because I'm just not really in the mood for nonfiction as I'm doing my science internship during the day. So then usually when I read, I just want fiction. But I have Feminism is for Everybody by Bell Hooks and also Ain't I a Woman by Bell Hooks. She writes a lot about intersectional feminism and I really want to get through her work because she's a very important voice in feminism. Also, I was speaking to some friends about romance books. We kind of have this prejudice against certain romance books. You know, some of us may read, you know, the romance book with the cutesy little illustrated covers, but subconsciously we have some kind of prejudice against romance books with other type of covers, usually the kind of romance books with like shirtless dudes on the covers. And there's this kind of idea that these books are different or less fun. But one of my friends was like, hey, here's this book called The Deal by Elle Kennedy, and I was extremely pleasantly surprised by it. It's a very fun romance book, and you should try it. And I found out that Storytel has it, so I added it to my list. So if you've read The Deal, let me know. I think that it's about a girl and a boy who strike a deal, obviously. But she's going to help him with his homework, and then he has to pretend that he's her boyfriend, so it's also fake dating. Apparently it's really good, so I am very excited about this one. Sometimes I find things on audiobook apps that I would never have gotten across if I went to like a bookstore, and I found this series called 9 Lives in Magic. The first book is called Witchy Whiskers by Danielle Garrett. But this is the story about a girl or a woman named Celine who has magic in her family, so she's a witch, and for some reason she has to take care of this like really mean cat that can talk, and she has to take care of it. It's described, I need to be a guardian to a cat with the personality of Sophia from the Golden Girls. And then her ex-husband moves into town, and there's a murder that she has to solve. This sounds absolutely horrible and amazing at the same time, and that's why I saved it. So I just wanted to share. These are not the kind of books that you're quickly gonna find out about, I think. So those are some audiobooks that I also acquired and have on my audiobook list. Another book that I have an entire video about, so I won't be long about it, is Bunny by Mona Awad. This is one of those books that was recommended to me a lot on TikTok. That's also why I read it. I have an entire video about it, and my housemate actually read it for like a book club that she has with her friends. So I was like, hey, can I borrow the book from you? So I borrowed her copy. And I remember I was on the train one day and I was very desperate. I didn't have any other books with me, and I really, really wanted to read something on the train. So I took Bunny with me and I started reading Bunny, and I was like, let's just check out this book. And from the first few pages I was completely hooked, and I very quickly bought my own copy because, again, I wanted to annotate, and there's a lot of annotations in here. How do I even describe this book? It's like a fever dream. But technically the plot starts with Samantha at Warren University. It's a dark academia, and there are these 4 other girls in her writing class that call themselves the Bunnies. They are very sweet, they're sickly sweet, they are an extremely tight-knit, close group of friends. Despite hating them, she slowly gets sucked into their world and their friendship, and it's extremely bizarre, surrealistic. I would describe it as the Not Like Other Girls girl that gets taken in by the other girls, and the weird dynamic that springs from that. Love this. Okay. I think now we're moving on to some books that I haven't read yet. Another recent edition that I'm so excited about is Iron Widow by Jiran. I wanna pronounce this right. How do I say this? Iron Widow by Shiran J. Chow. And this book has been described as Pacific Rim, because they're like mechas in it, meets The Handmaid's Tale. I haven't read any modern YA fantasy in a long time, and I haven't seen any modern YA fantasy that has gotten a lot of hype until this book came out. We follow a main character who is a pilot that flies one of these like mecha fighting machines, and her plan is to assassinate another pilot that is responsible for her sister's death. So this sounds like it's gonna be action-packed, super cool sci-fi elements that I haven't seen. Personally, I haven't read a book with like mechas before. I've read Magic Knight Rayearth. Magic Knight Rayearth is like this manga series, and I also seen the anime about magical girls that can turn also into like mechas. And I read that when I was like 14 years old. From what I've heard, it has a love triangle, but instead of the consequences of the love triangle being endless miscommunication and annoyance, it's just polyamory. So we love to see progress in YA fantasy. Next up is a book that I lent from a friend. So a while back, one of my friends asked for book recommendations, and if I remember correctly, they asked for like very cozy, just heartwarming fantasy stories, and I recommended a book to them that I hadn't read myself, but that I heard people specifically describing as very heartwarming, wholesome fantasy. And I was like, hey, you should try out this book. And recently they finished a book, they really liked it, and they were like, hey, thanks for recommending this to me. It was really good. You should read it too. Do you want to lend it for me? So they lent it out to me, and it is The House at the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. Like I said, this is supposedly extremely heartwarming, cozy fantasy about an old man that works at the department in charge of magical youth, which I'm pretty sure is kind of like an orphanage-ish for lost children that have magical abilities, and he has to take care of them, which already sounds really great because I love that trope of the grumpy middle-aged man that is forced to take care of a child. I can't really think of any examples of stories that have this, but I love it when that happens. Sounds like it's gonna be the definition of found family, and I'm very here for it. I will have to give this back eventually, so I should probably get around to it not too late. This should not disappear onto the TBR pile forever, because it's not mine. And then another book that I also lent from a friend is a book that I really want to read for a video. I expressed a while back that I really want to get into Japanese literature. There have just been a lot of Japanese translated works that have gotten very popular, so I wanted to make a video where I read Japanese books. And one that I lent from a friend because she really loved it is Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. There's this cafe where you can get a coffee, and then you can travel back in time, relive something or rectify something from your past. The only rule is that you have to be back before the coffee gets cold, and we follow 4 stories that play out like this. I really didn't expect the book to be so thin. It's only 200 pages, so it should be really quick to get through. And it's actually funny because I remember my friend buying this book and being really excited about this right before it started to become really popular on booktube. She liked it before it was cool, so I have a very cool friend. So I'm very happy that she wanted to lend this out to me, so I also want to get through this one very quickly. And the last 2 books I just want to mention quickly because I'm pretty sure I did technically haul these in a video before, but I did buy them this year, so I just wanted to mention them. One of the first books that I bought this year, I have an entire video about this one as well, is Mrs. Death, Mrs. Death. The story of this book is that I really wanted to go to a bookstore and just pick out a book that I hadn't heard of before, completely just in the moment, devoid of internet influence, and I got Mrs. Death, Mrs. Death. Definitely got attracted to the pun in the title. It's basically just a collection of stories that she tells about being Mrs. Death, so stories about death. And the interesting thing about this one is that it's a combination of just prose and also, if I can find an example, poetry. A book about death. And then the other book that I bought, this was when I went to Amsterdam with my housemates, actually. We went to go to an escape room in Amsterdam, and when we got there, the escape room was broken. So we couldn't go to the escape room, and they were like, okay, we can give you another time slot, but it's later in the day. So we were like, sure, we can just go into Amsterdam and hang out. And of course we stopped by the bookstore. I was looking for this book and I could never find it anywhere, but surprisingly the American Book Center actually had the book, and it was A Certain Hunger. It was very expensive. It was 23 euros, which is very expensive for a tiny paperback. But you know, I bought it anyway. Gotta support those bookstores. And I was like, this book better be good. It just sounded so interesting because it's about a female cannibal. She's like a food critic, a huge foodie. She loves food, especially human meat, you know? And we follow the story as she basically kills all of her past lovers and then eats them. So if you're looking for an unhinged woman, like actually unhinged, like not just a little bit like, ooh, she crazy. No. Actual cannibal and serial killer. This is the book for you. Love the cover, by the way. I'm really a big fan of covers that have paintings on them. I tried Googling it, but I couldn't find it anywhere. So if anyone happens to know this painting, let me know because I think it's beautiful and I would like to see the entire work. And those are all the books that I bought so far in the year of our Lord 2022. 11 books. Yeah, so like half of these books I already have discussed in depth in other videos, which is the reason why I don't usually do book hauls, because I kind of feel like I'm just repeating myself. But some of these books I haven't read yet and I haven't showed on this channel very often, and I will take any excuse to talk about these books more. So it'll probably be another year before I do another book haul, so this was a fun little unique moment for us. If you're new here and you're still watching, usually I just do like vlogs of the books that I'm reading. So if you want to see that, subscribe for more content on books. If you want more chitty chatting about books, you can join our Discord server. You can follow me on Twitch and also on other social media. There are just a lot of places on the internet that you can hang out with me. Bit of a low effort video, I'm aware. I'm kind of in the final stages of wrapping up my degree. I still have like a little more than a month left of my internship and then I will graduate, so I'm kind of, my head's a bit busy with that at the moment, but I still hope you enjoyed this video. It was a great excuse for me to buy a bubble tea. I really hope you had a good time. I had a good time, and I will see you soon in another video. Goodbye.